Greetings everyone. I trust you are all well during these powerful times. The energies have been really strong, and I just really wanted to share with you all, first of all, to check in, because it's been quite an extraordinary couple of years, and now we're in a time where we're seeing more stuff unfold in the media particularly. And I suppose really what I'm trying to say is that our perception, our thoughts and our emotions are quite often in the West what we perceive as reality, and therefore that is where we can end up being manipulated through the cultures and the orders, the social orders that we live in. So if we live in our heads and we believe that's a reality, that means we are able to be manipulated, and that is used against us. So like with COVID, it was quite clear there was a lot of fear that was directing people's actions and thoughts about life, love and living and their existence. And yet we live in I would say like a global village, whereby now we're all connected. So therefore this can be used more insidiously by the powers that be, because it's quite clear that we're living in a world now that what affects one affects all. What affects one country affects another country, particularly if we rely on them for certain things like fuel or food or things like that, because there are some countries that are a lot more produce certain things that we depend on. So that's what's become quite clear. But the point I'm trying to make though is that we're living in a time now, as we activate more and more light, more and more love, as in lightening our density and bringing more light into our mind, bodies and souls and spirits. And therefore that happens in the world. So whenever we come together globally for healing, or to anchor light, or to bring in the new reality, or even to speak directly to the systems that we live in, and say, well, your time is up now, this is our time and we're carrying forward. And this happened on the 22nd of February, and then within a few days we heard that Russia invaded Ukraine. Now whatever their motives are, because I tend to remain in a place of equanimity and neutrality, and I don't invest in one side or another, because we are all human beings, and I think what's happening in the world at the moment is that we're being put through a sieve. Are we going to accept the fact that we're all one and we're all connected? Are we going to work as one, or is it going to be us against them? Is it going to be NATO people against non-NATO people, or so all these things. And I think as human beings we eventually have to come to a point, because we are evolutionary beings, so for us to evolve in the way that we're supposed to and create a new reality, we need to move beyond this separation due to one's nationality, colour, gender, sexuality, all of that. And once we do that, and there's still a huge thing about how people show up as their gender, particularly the world that we're living in, which is very patriarchal, and whatever that means, and therefore the whole idea of what it means to be male or female, has been projected in a particular way. Hence why men who are running certain territories or countries around the planet seem to be playing out playground games, and it's very unlikely that you'll find women do that, so there's a lot going on here, and it does really feel as if it's time for us to recognize that whatever that we are shifting realities, and the more that we bring in light, the more that we bring in the new reality, the more that's obviously going to affect the matrix and the old reality of duality that we're moving out of, because it just makes sense. So the more light we bring in, the more dark it seems that we experience, the more disturbance. And if anyone tells you this is what the new earth's going to be like, or the new reality, we can have an idea of what it's like, but we don't know. It's still unwritten. So it's important for us to recognize this. So when we come together in ceremony or ritual or in prayer or in meditation, to really listen to our higher self, so we can access the parameters that are necessary for these times, how we sit, how we pray, what we're supposed to do. And we shouldn't really be going into autopilot, into doing. We are called human beings, and it's only through our beingness are we able to tap into what it really means to be human. Compassionately. And there's so much of our inner technology that we still don't fully understand, and it is there for us, and all we need to do is access it. So I'm just saying this, that just be mindful of what's happening. The media is going to tell us a story and a narrative, and we learnt this through COVID, that it's like we're living in a movie, and there's that saying that fact is stranger than fiction. And at the moment, there seems a very thin line between what is real and what is unreal. And you can't create a story unless there is evidence of something. But even in terms of how something is set up, like what's happening with Russia, no one absolutely knows. And I don't really want to go into conspiracy theories and who has interest in Ukraine and who has, but I would just say that we need to hold the beam for both Russia and for Ukraine and for all the politicians, because they are the ones that are dealing with the shifting and the breaking of the old paradigms and the old ways of being. So we should not go into separation or into duality and start pointing the fingers, because if you're pointing the finger at anyone, including Putin, then we're actually pointing the finger at ourselves, or that part of us that we find unacceptable. And yet being human requires us to allow all these things to be in the space without going into judgment, so we can hold them in compassion and in love and in with unconditional regard. So as we evolve as human beings, as the old systems fall away, we recognize that there's more contrast in the field. There's more lights, and therefore there's more of what seems like shadow or negative energy, and that's because the old needs to fall. It's like in the tarot, there's a card called the Tower, and that's the most transformational card in the tarot deck. And they say that, with that particular card, you have to be mindful that you don't end up being part of the collateral damage as the tower collapses by being hit by the debris of this tower that's falling upon, falling back down to earth, So, part of the process is to clear the decks, and this is happening. And it's important to recognize that this is happening, to really continue to hold the beam in regards to knowing and trusting that what is happening is bringing in the new reality, and to hold the faith. Within us, we have the ability to set up the torus within us, so we can exist within the oneness. Everything is everything. The light becomes the dark becomes the light. There's a bit of the dark in the light, there's a bit of the light in the dark. And this is what we're aiming for. It is paradoxical, but that is the reality and the nature of the universe. So this is the time now for us to exist within that space of neutrality, right? To really hold the energy with just love, holding everything with love. And we continue to hold that being, and that way we activate that part of us, that vaster aspect of us that coexists in fourth and fifth dimensional realities. And this is what we're embodying. And this is the challenge as well, to continue to do that despite all of the drama and what seems like the opposite to what we're trying to anchor. So like any samurai warrior or Shaolin warrior, how do you hold the focus? How do you hold the beam? Even if someone has said to you, you've only got 5 weeks to live, or we're about to go to war, world war, or there's a pandemic. What do we do? Are we going to go into fear? Are we going to believe that and allow our whole reality to be dictated by what we're being told, which is simply an idea? And there are certain things that are going to happen. We're all going to die, and we're all going to perhaps have some kind of awakening, which might cause us to crash, so we can awaken. I call that a rude awakening. So there's always going to be contrast, even in the new reality. There's still going to be 3 dimensions to the new reality. It's just our perception of reality will shift from a 3rd dimension to a 5th dimension. So if you imagine, first dimension is within the 2nd dimension, the 2nd dimension is within the 3rd is within the 4th, and the 4th is within the 5th, and it goes on and on. So it's fractal, but it's also exponentially faster and wider. So this is what we need to expand into, so we can be the overseers, and by witnessing reality as an overseer, and it's our oversoul that we connect with and we integrate into our human experience. So here we are, sending lots of love and wishing you all the best at this time, and happy springtime in the northern hemisphere and happy autumn time in the southern. Much love. Bye bye.